Well, a good Friday morning. Thank you for tuning in to the Gardener's Corner program, a Friday feature here on TV Channel 10, located on Channel 191 of Charter Communications and WKRX 96.7 FM. My name is Rob Hall. We welcome you into the program, brought to you today by T.G. Brooks Company, Sandling Golf Cars, and Our Pride Foods, makers of Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip. We would like to make welcome our special guest today from the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service, where he serves as the area crop agent for Person and Granville counties. If you would at this time, please make welcome Mr. Gary Cross.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate being on here, and I appreciate all the work you do promoting Extension and your station, and we really appreciate that.
Well, we're glad to be in it because in just a few words, we're kind of all in the same boat, and so we need to help each other paddle along whenever we can.
Now, I don't know if I'll do as well as your retired radio guru, Carl Cantalupi, but I'll do my best to try and at least come up, you know, a little higher maybe than him on some issues.
Well, you know, Gary, Carl was the first agent that, you know, started the show, and he was on about 20 years, and Carl could, in a sense, just about do the program by himself. He was very knowledgeable in his field of horticulture, and I think a lot of people sometimes made light of what Carl done, but you and I both know that Carl was really good at his job, and he took his job extremely serious. He sure did.
You and I have talked about this before, but you know, Carl and I both have lived all over the United States working in extension and agriculture, and him in horticulture. And I don't believe I've met anybody that was at his level, and especially knowledge base on a wide variety of subjects that were just, it was tremendous. And we lost a resource. People don't realize whether it's in education, school teaching, whether it's radio, whether it's, you lose people that have that kind of experience, you know, you don't gain that back very quickly. And they were lucky to have somebody with Carl's background and Carl's knowledge here in this region, and I got to know him, and I appreciate it. He's up there in Pennsylvania, kick back, joining two bands, having fun, probably making fun of us down here.
Well, you know, you have talked with Carl since I have, but when I talked with him a few weeks ago, he was telling me that he was in the process of trying to get some shrubbery cut back away from the house, because he said that it had been several years since it was a landline in the phone, and he said that they had an appointment for the phone company to come out that day to get the landline hooked up, I guess, for the computer and things. And when I talked with Carl, he was pretty winded at the time, but
probably from the heat.
Carl, you know, was with the Extension Service 20 years plus, and anyway, him and his wife Ruth purchased a home in Pennsylvania, and you know, Carl is originally from New Jersey. His wife Ruth originally from Pennsylvania, so they're back closer to home, and I want to wish him the very best. For those of you that are just joining in, you know, the Gardener's Corner program always features someone related to the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service, and that is tied in with the Department of Agriculture. But the North Carolina Cooperative Extension's slogan is empowering people, providing solutions. And, you know, some people may take offense thinking that, you know, an extension agent may be nosy, but it's not at all that. Whenever they are asking questions about, you know, your farm and what you are growing, you know, they're doing it to obtain knowledge, and then should you ever have a problem with something, they will use the knowledge that they have went to school and trained for over a great number of years to help you out. And the nice thing having somebody as knowledgeable as the agents with the Cooperative Extension Service is their service is free of charge.
That's correct.
So if you ever have a problem, and Gary's expertise is in crops, so he deals with tobacco, corn, soybeans, wheat, and you also were saying something, Gary, about dealing with sorghum.
Yeah, we have grain sorghum here too. Not a lot of acres of it, but there is some that farmers will plant in rotation with crops to have another crop to be in rotation, or they may fence it off after they harvest it, and cows eat the fodder that's left from the harvest, and fatten up cattle by doing that. This is a diverse state. This is a very diverse state. Where I came from in Texas, West Texas, they had some diversity out there, but majority of it was like miles and miles of cotton, miles and miles. And here it's a lot more diverse, and you really get diverse when you go further southeast and other places. But basically our main crops here are wheat, grain sorghum like you were talking about, or milo, which some folks talk. Another one, of course, is corn, soybeans, and then we also have conventional and double crop. There is a little cotton, but not this year in this region because the cotton prices fell down so bad. They decided not to plant cotton, and this would be over in Granville County. And then we have tobacco, which is a big crop here in North Carolina and Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, other states. And we've been struggling this year, Rob, with some of the row crops. Early, we had rain, storm after rainstorm after rainstorm. That affected a lot of the corn that was planted early. They had a lot of pythium problems, which inhibited the uptake of a lot of the nutrients. So you had a lot of stunted and yellow corn early. But if they did split applications on fertilizer, they would come out of it. So a lot of it did come out of it. There's probably some spots out in fields that didn't do as well. Corn's being stressed right now. This heat, I don't know how come you brought this heat in here, Rob, but you did.
Well,
but it's stressing out a lot of the crops out here. Corn, it starts to roll its leaves. Tobacco is really the worst. It likes heat, don't get me wrong. But when you have high humidity with added in with the heat, you start getting target spot, blue mold, all these different diseases start to come in. The first 3 or 4 leaves from the bottom up, or maybe even higher, have just been devastated by target spot this year. So, that affects yield, that'll affect poundage and other issues. So, there's just a lot of problems with this humidity and heat. And it's not very good on folks either, as far as that goes.
Amen to that, brother. Speaking of the heat, I noticed a little joke, a foghorn leghorn, and he said, I say, it's so hot that the hens are out catching worms and using oven mitts. So that's pretty hot.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. But Gary, I did notice an article in the local newspaper about target spot, and basically, what is target spot on tobacco?
It's a disease that you get a lot of rain, you get raindrops on it, you get dirt getting on the leaves, or I should say particles. Then it creates sporulates, and this high humidity creates environment for it to sporulate, and it just creates lesions on those leaves, and it just basically will destroy them leaves if it continues to be humid. Now next week we're supposed to get cooler temperatures. That will slow down the target spot. There's Quadris is what you would use on it, but it's not an emergency thing. If you're using Quadris, you probably need to be doing it as a management tool earlier. You may spray Quadris now, but basically all you're going to do is inhibit what's not out there, but what would come on later if it did. So I'm not saying it's too late. It's just that where you're going to spend your money is you need to spend it a little bit earlier and do, you know, a management tool with the fungicide earlier. And that probably would have worked. That's worked for some people, but we've had so much of it this year. I don't know what would have worked overall. So, and you know, it's just you know, farmers really don't have a lot of control over the weather, and there's not a lot they can do about that. You know, Rob, too, we've had hailstorms over in Granville. I'm sure they've had some over here too. That's wiped out some tobacco fields, and windstorms. Some of the farmers have told me they've went and reset the tobacco because it'll blow it over 4, 5, 6 times, and that's
hard work.
That's time consuming. That's hard work, and that's you know, an issue that they've been having to deal with. It's been a tough year for all the crop farmers, tobacco, all of them, to get through the rain issues. And you know, with soybeans, you get heat like this, especially if they're blooming, they'll abort the blooms, and then that affects yield. So you've got that type of issue, plus high humidity in soybeans will create an issue of disease pathogens coming in also. So it's just I'm ready for some cool weather, and when you order it, I'll be thrilled.
Well, you know, that was one thing that, you know, Carl used to talk about with a lot of vegetable garden plants. High humidity kind of invites funguses and diseases to come in. Gary, you mentioned several things I want to talk to you about. I want to continue on with tobacco, but I want to ask you about cotton, and I also want to ask you about sorghum. But with all of the rain that we had in the springtime, a lot of farmers was delayed in planting tobacco. Yes. Now, and then we've had, you know, pretty good rain up until just a few weeks ago.
Correct. That's correct.
But I know of a few farmers that did do some irrigating. But now, one question that I have kind of wondered is, with all of the rain that we had in the spring, and you know, had pretty much
May and June
almost an irrigation-free season,
yes.
Which not 100% free of irrigation. With all the rain, is it a pretty good crop of quality tobacco, or is a lot of it out there pretty much all the fertilizing stuff is leached out, and it's not going to have much weight to it?
I think a lot of that was done earlier on some of the earlier tobacco, and there may have been some of the later tobacco. It's like one farmer told me over at the tobacco tour that we held yesterday over at the Oxford Research Farm. It took me 4 days to plant the first half of my crop and 4 weeks to plant the rest of my crop.
Wow.
So, and that's a lot of people out here this year. They got in early and got some tobacco planted, and then it just rained and rained and rained. It has been good on it. What's been bad out here has been the humidity. The humidity is really what's hurt a lot of the tobacco out here. Don't get me wrong. When you get 4 inches of rain in an hour, that's not going to be good on anything.
Yeah.
When you look at corn, you know, earlier it looked pretty bad, but once you went in there and did a second application of fertilizer, it looked a lot better. This rain probably helped it dramatically get through July and August, so it's probably going to be made. A lot of the corn is, and it may be relatively good corn from that standpoint. It's had a lot of rain, and soybeans are kind of in the same boat. This last week, thank goodness we don't have next week to deal with this. We'd be really struggling on a lot of issues.
Yeah, I understand that hopefully Sunday and then on into next week, it's not supposed to be extremely, as near high conditions and extremely hot as we've had the last several days, and understand that the humidity will maybe be a little bit lower. And you know, those of you that are out working in the heat, you know, always make sure to keep yourself hydrated. And you know, if you are drinking alcohol, that is something that will more or less cause you to dehydrate more so than to keep yourself hydrated. But when it's high humidity, when you sweat, when the humidity is extremely high, it's really hard for the sweat to, evaporate, and that is, part of the cooling process. And so if you're out working, if at all possible, make sure that you take frequent breaks. If you want to go out and work early in the morning, and then if the job allows you to, go back in the late afternoons. Although a lot of times it's hotter in the afternoon than it is in the morning. But one thing, when the sun starts to go down a little bit, it is a little bit more comfortable to do things outside. Um, Gary, I want to continue on. I told you that I wanted to ask you about sorghum and cotton,
Yes.
and I want to add soybeans to the list also. But still continuing on with tobacco, um, I kind of, worked on a farm growing up, helping my aunt and uncle in tobacco. And by the way, this is a pre recorded edition of the Gardener's Corner program. And I actually needed to be off this morning. My aunt, Estelle Larry, passed away on Tuesday night, and her funeral service is this morning. And but my Aunt Estelle Larry and my Uncle Bud Larry were tobacco farmers. And when I was young, I helped them in
Sure. You
tobacco
bet.
during the summertime. And you worked on the farm to learn about work, and also the money that you earned on the farm is what you would use to help buy your school clothes. Now, I'm not saying that I bought all of my school clothes, but some of the money that I made went towards school clothes, and my parents would help me out. But I guess in a sense I owe it to my aunt and uncle for my love of agriculture of what
Sure.
it is
You bet.
today. But anyway, just what I was going to say, you had made mention, a while ago that, you know, the weather is something that you have no control
That's
over,
correct.
and that's a good thing. But I've told a lot of people that whenever you're doing anything, and I don't care if it's farming or if you're promoting shows or if you've got a landscaping business or an earth moving business, a dump truck business, your biggest partner in any and all of these businesses is one that you have no control over, and it's the weather. But with that being said, Gary, I remember years ago farmers would talk about black shank, Granville wilt, and all of these diseases
We
in
still
tobacco.
have those.
So they're still around.
Oh
then.
yeah, they're still around. You know, it's soil-borne type diseases that you have. That it's in the soil, and basically it's just the type of year that brings them out. You may have a history of those fields that may not have had much or any, and then you get in there, and some of that may be varietal resistance too. You have varieties that have a little bit more tolerance than others. So you have to look at those types of issues when you're planting, and most farmers do. Don't get me wrong, but even with that, with type of conditions you have in the field or whatever, you still may have some of it and get some of it. I'm going to go look at some samples here tomorrow morning here in this county in relation to that. But we still have those. In fact, from what I understand from the history, that in the 20s, the early 20s, maybe a little bit earlier than that most people in this region were wiped out by Granville wilt. And that's the reason why it's called Granville wilt, because it was so bad in Granville County.
Well, I had wondered
And
about that.
that was one of the reasons why it was named in that capacity. And you know, we were talking earlier, Rob, if you don't mind me diverging a little bit,
That's
on
all right.
on the tobacco tour that we had yesterday. A lot of people don't realize about the Oxford Station. And a lot of maybe some of the folks that are older may have an understanding of that, but that tobacco research station has been around for many, many, many years. And many inventions that are out here today that farmers are using came from that research station.
In Oxford?
At Oxford, and one of them is the curing barn. The curing barns were invented in Oxford, North Carolina.
Did not know that.
Yeah, at the research station. There's procedural issues. They used to, and I don't think this was invented at the Oxford Research Station, but I think NC State had a lot to do with it. That tobacco used to be put on racks here years and years ago. Well, I think North Carolina State worked with tobacco companies to try and get them to understand that, you know, we can do this loose leaf and be able to have more of a benefit, maybe less labor, and not have to put them on racks like they used to. And that was done in the late 50s, early 60s, maybe a little later than that. But tobacco, has a lot of positive uses that people do not realize. And one of them is it's one of the finest plants to do any type of biotech transfer gene work in. It's a very usable plant in doing that. Many people don't realize that the Ebola outbreak that they had in Africa, and people that got it and brought it and came back here that had it, using an experimental drug that had tobacco in it. And there's a lot of things that are being looked at from the standpoint. There's a company up here in Northern Virginia that's looking at tobacco for bioenergy. From the standpoint, instead of it producing a lot of nicotine, it'll produce a lot more sugar, and that sugar will be able to be turned into ethanol. And it's supposed to be a very good plant to be able to do that, but they've got some things they're going to have to work out in relation to that, and that's in the future. But there's lots of different things that tobacco can be used for, other than just the tobacco product issues that we've discussed before. And the tour we had yesterday over in Oxford, people came from all over really the world. We had people from Japan there, we had people from China, we had people from South Carolina, Virginia, North Carolina, other states, Georgia. We had private companies there, we had researchers in the private sector. We had farmers there. You got to talk to your old buddy over there yesterday, Paul Curran. And there's other folks there. So we had a mix of a lot of different people and a lot of good research work going on by NC State in the tobacco program. And what impressed me was some of the work they were doing in organic. They were doing studies in relation to guano, which is, the aftermath of what a bird would eat and excrete.
I did not know it was called guano.
You call it guano, and they were doing some greenhouse studies in relation to what would effectively work well in that. They also were doing some testing out some organic fertilizers in relation to how they would do in the field. They were doing population studies there. They did of course, the OVT test was there of all the different companies and all what North Carolina and other states breed in tobacco, their programs, and looking at their varieties. Just a lot. We did an organic. We went off farm, off the research station, and looked on a very large field project on beneficial insects helping organic in that capacity, organic tobacco. So there's a lot of things going on out here, Rob. You don't hear a lot of, but it's very good work to make it efficient in agriculture, make it more profitable for those who are working in it. And that's really the name of the game. And I know you and I have talked about Carl here on this program today, but he was really big on that, and I'm really big on that in that capacity. Work on things that are going to generate you money, find you a market, and try new things and innovate, because you have to do that to be able to move forward and to move the mark forward in anything you're doing in research or farming or anything in extension, radio programs. You do that all the time. You're always doing new and different things. So that's what has to be done. But it was a tour that was very warm, I want to say, yesterday.
Oh, most definitely. I would agree with you, and I wasn't there. I did not know, that tobacco was, being looked at and used for other means. And, typically tobacco gets a bad, rap, of causing harm. And several weeks ago, when I interviewed the Commissioner of Agriculture of North Carolina, Mr. Steve Troxler,
Yes.
we were talking, and I told him, I said, tobacco is what built, a lot of these major cities around. I said, you look at Durham,
Duke.
if it wasn't for tobacco, Durham would be nothing of what it is
You
today.
wouldn't have Duke University.
You're right.
Their family was in that business.
And I think, if I remember correctly, Mr. Troxler said that North Carolina was 11th in the United States of producing tobacco.
Right.
And it's really neat when you talk about the research station in Oxford has developed and came out with so many different
That's
ideas and solutions to make things progress along. We need to get a word on right now for one of our sponsors. We'll take a trip down to Timberlake and we'll stop in at T.G. Brooks Company. They've been in business since 1936. With this hot weather, if you're wanting a cooler that will keep your ice a lot longer, T.G. Brooks Company is your local Grizzly cooler dealer. Stop in and see Bill and Roy and the staff at T.G. Brooks Company. While you're there, pick up one of those hand-cut ribeyes, or maybe several of them, and enjoy them on the grill this weekend. We'll be back after a word from T.G. Brooks Company.
The month of July, and two things are important to a lot of us here in Person County. Number one is getting those delicious vegetables and pickles put up for the winter, whether you grew them or bought them at one of the two farmers markets. T.G. Brooks Company has all your canning jars in half pints, quarts, half gallons. And they have pressure cookers, bath canners, strainers, funnels. In fact, all of your canning supplies they offer at T.G. Brooks. They offer the stone jars for pickling too. The second item is to keep everything green, and T.G. Brooks Company can handle all kinds of watering needs. First of all, they have sprinklers, water hose sprayers, and water hose parts. They have irrigating equipment. T.G. Brooks Company also has your piping for irrigating. They have gas-powered pumps. A reminder, T.G. Brooks Company has Bartlett Animal Feeds, and they have dog fences and dog food by the bag. Also, it's time to beautify your property while you're out of doors. They offer so many kinds of mulch in bulk form or bagged. You can get your mulch by the large scoop. They have delivery services available too. Bring your truck, trailer, and they'll load it up for you. When it comes to yard tools to do the work, they have all your hose and diggers and choppers and everything you need to beautify. And be sure to enjoy the day with your family by ending the day with a delicious hand-cut rib-eye steak, sold and cut to your width, and cook it up on the grill. And then don't forget the ice cream freezers for some homemade ice cream. They have them. T.G. Brooks Company has been serving the farmer, the homeowner, and landscaper in our area since 1936.
Here we are back on the Gardeners Corner program. Rob Hall is my name. Mr. Gary Cross, who is the crop agent for the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service of Person and Granville counties. We've been talking about tobacco a lot and going to continue on, and then I want to talk about a few other things. Gary, we was just saying that, tobacco is, done a lot of good, and tobacco is by far the biggest agriculture money-making crop in North Carolina. Do you have any idea how much tobacco brings in a year?
Tobacco here, I'm probably going to do Granville and Person together, between $60 and $100 million in relation to the economy here.
That's
maybe
Person in Granville County.
Maybe even more than that.
Wow.
It's a big money-generating crop. Of course, you have companies here that are involved in the processing part of tobacco, and that generates a lot of jobs and a lot of monies for the economies around here. And it's I can't speak on the issues other than the agricultural aspects and what I look, and I mainly deal pretty much just with the farming and
Right.
the agricultural end of it. And it can be a tough crop to grow, and it can be difficult. And to me, to some extent, it is an art, Rob, especially when it comes to the curing process of tobacco. You can't just walk in and, excuse me, and do that, because you got to have years to know what temperatures do. You know, if you got a lot of humidity out there, you got to be able to adjust your temperatures and when to harvest and how long to cure it, and on and on and on. So it's not easy, especially on the curing end, in relation to that. You know, they start by growing in the greenhouses in February, late February, all the way to October, November. And I've been listening to some of the stories, Rob. In fact, I was talking to your friend and producer Paul Curran. I said, "What's the stories I'm hearing? They used to be done in September here with tobacco years ago." He said, "Yeah, you'd be done. They'd delay school and put school off till we got the tobacco
That's
done."
right.
And
It used to be the kids didn't go back to school until Labor Day, but it was once upon a time to where they would delay the start of schools depending on how well the tobacco harvest,
Was going.
was in the house. That's right. Yes, and it is changed by that, and back earlier in the spring, I was talking with the large tobacco farmer, and I asked how they were coming along about planting the crop, and he said, "Well, Rob," he said, "the way that it's been this year." He said, "We've had to deal with a lot of rain, a lot of cool temperatures." And he said,
that's correct too.
towards the end of the season, he said, "We're going to be dealing with frost issues."
That's because of the late planted tobacco and tobacco that may mature a little later. It's just, it's one of those years they just couldn't get it in as quick as they wanted to get it in. And you're correct too. In early April, I think it was the 6th or the 9th, maybe both days, it got down below 30 degrees in the evening, and that there was cold injury out here in tobacco. I've seen it, and we even took samples down that were evaluated at the University Plant Pathology Lab, and that affected a lot of things out here. That affected probably apple trees. That probably affected maybe not pears bad, but peach and all these different. So if you're not getting a lot of fruit off your trees this year, that might be part of the reason. We had some damaged wheat. I know that there was wheat that was damaged by that cold spell. So, and there was tobacco that was damaged. But, you are correct, Rob, from the standpoint of we're planted all over the date-wise. We went from April to June this year planting tobacco, and you got some that's knee-high and some that's coming off now for harvest, and or the first round of harvesting. And it's just, it's going to be a long year. It's one of those years you'll probably be glad when it's over and hope you make some money off of it, but it's just been a tough year. And, they didn't have control over a lot of that. They could get in when they could get in. So, they did a pretty good job getting it out, I thought, considering all the rain they had.
Yeah. Yes, and I know my neighbor was talking just a couple of weeks ago about he didn't think he was going to have many grapes, because of the cold snap, and so a little bit of everything has been affected. One thing that I would like to make mention of, as Carl Cantalupi has taught me over the years, and we have shared it with our listeners, nature has an incredible, remarkable way about stacking water. And in fruits and vegetables, they are typically, 90% water.
Correct.
So you need to be keeping an eye on your fruit and vegetable garden to make sure that it is keeping a reasonable amount of soil moisture. You don't want it to go from one extreme being soaking wet to bone dry. And some people sometimes think that if we got a little shower of rain, that was enough, where in many cases it's not. So, Carl always talked about using a screwdriver to test the soil moisture. And the way that you do it, you take a screwdriver that's got at least a 6-inch, blade on it, and you stick it down into the ground. And what you want to try to do is have a soil moisture at least 6 inches in the ground. And so when you first press the screwdriver in the ground, you can kind of feel of it to feel where the soil moisture stops at. And then what you need to do is set up some type of irrigation, or even if you're just watering with a hose, and you need to check it periodically, and then you will learn how long it takes to irrigate to get it wet 6 inches down. But again, don't think with a shower of rain here and a shower of rain there. You need to keep soil moisture in the ground if you want, your crops to produce well. And I notice a lot of crops planted out there, corn and soybeans and things like that can't be irrigated. But, for your smaller crops, vegetable gardens and things like that, do your best to stay on top of it. We're going to get a word on for Our Pride Foods, makers of Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip. With the hot, humid weather, sometimes you may not have a real big appetite. Why not try some Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese on a cracker, or maybe have it as a sandwich? It's a light meal and it's very good. Here's more information from Our Pride Foods.
Our Pride Foods, makers of Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip, is made in Roxborough. Whether you're having a family gathering or would just like a snack for yourself, be sure to keep plenty of Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip on hand. Goodness grows in North Carolina. Our Pride Foods, makers of Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese, is available at T.G. Brooks Company, Hurdle Mills Market and Butcher Shop, North Main IGA, Twins Meat Market, Just Save, and Food Line stores. Also, if you're in Uptown Roxborough and get the hankering for some Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese, you can enjoy it at Cole's Pharmacy and Triss's Espresso. That's Our Pride Foods, makers of Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip. Try the jalapeno added for extra flavor. Goodness grows in North Carolina, and Our Pride Foods, makers of Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip, is located in Roxborough.
Here we are back on the Gardeners Corner program. My special guest today, Gary Cross of the Cooperative Extension Service. Gary made mention to me while we were taking a commercial break, something that we want to pass along to our listeners. If at all possible, you are better to water your fruit and vegetable garden, even your lawn, early in the morning or midday. A lot of times when you water in the late afternoon, you are just kind of opening up the door for diseases and different things. Now, if late in the evening is the only time you have the opportunity to irrigate, that's when you have to do it. But if you could do it early in the morning or midday, more or less you would be watering everything. And when you irrigate, you don't have to actually wash the plant down or anything. If you use a soaker hose for your fruit and vegetable garden, that's fine. But what happens a lot of times when you do irrigate with a sprinkler, it will more or less gets the whole plant wet. And when the plant, if it does not dry out, before sundown, that plant will be pretty much wet all night, and that can cause you more problems. But
that's correct, Rob. Because in that, if you water late evening, which a lot of people do because they get home from work, the plants are wilted. You know, I got to do something. I got to water these things, which that's fine. But when you water things, especially late evenings, you create an environment, a wet environment overnight that creates a lot of sporulation, especially in this humidity that's very hot at night. And you're correct also in relation to the early morning because it dries off real quick when you put it on there early morning, and then you don't have as much problem in the rest of the day with it, and especially disease sporulation, especially in lawns is where you get a lot of, you want to water in lawns early morning, and like you said, vegetable gardens. So it just creates a lot of disease sporulation in the late evenings and overnight. That's been proven by many universities. And horticulture's done that, and probably Carl Cantalupi.
Yeah. One other thing that we will say, here it is, last of July. If you've got Bermuda grasses, it's okay to fertilize them. If you have cool season grasses, you need to go ahead and do soil samples and get your results back. And typically, about the second week in September is when you can start fertilizing your cool season fescue grasses. Gary, quick question. You mentioned nobody's planting cotton in Granville County this year.
Or Person County, no.
I remember some years back in Granville County around the Creedmoor area, there was some people planting cotton. And they just didn't plant this year because of the price is so low.
It's all over the United States. Cotton farmers have really had a lot, and especially in North Carolina too, have had a lot of struggles of price. China has the largest producer of cotton in the world, but it's not quality cotton, not like our cotton is. From the standpoint of how we harvest it, and I'll just give you an example. I went to a international cotton symposium in Lubbock, Texas, and I was involved in it as not necessarily a panel member, but I was in the audience, and they were asking questions about cotton. And they said, who grows the best cotton in the world? Where there's a guy from India that was there and said, we do, and there's a guy from China that said, we do. And I said, no, we do. And they said, how come you think that America grows the best cotton, Mr. Cross? I said, because it's all machine harvested, and because in cotton, you can have no foreign material in it, because once that gin has to clean all that foreign material. If it slips through, when you go to like making blue jeans like you and I wear, or pants that we wear, or shirts for everybody, it'll leave a mark all the way through that whole roll of fabric, and those rolls of fabric are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you have to re-dye them and redo everything with them. So we produce the finest quality cotton. So all the mills in the world want ours because we machine harvest, because a lot of it in India, in China, and other spots in the world that grow cotton is hand-picked. That's what we did back here years and years ago. But today, ginners and other people want high quality machine harvested cotton because you don't have any foreign material in it, very little foreign material in it. And when they gin it to take it to processors that will turn it into jeans or fabric, it's quite a process. And you have a little bit of that in tobacco too, but not as bad as it is in cotton. And that was hard for people to accept that, but you get a lot of foreign material in cotton, and it gets through the gin. You've got a big expense from the fabric standpoint of dyeing, the dyes that they have to put in there, and the marks that it leaves. So cotton price, usually it takes about 76 cents to be a break even on cotton, maybe a little lower than that. But majority of it's been below, it's got as low as below 60 cents.
Wow.
And it's got as, it's stayed pretty much for the last 2 or 3 years, way below 70 cents. So it's been a tough road on cotton.
Did not have any idea. And I know that cotton is mainly used in making garments and things like that. but it's also other things that come out of the cotton seed oil.
You bet.
And they use a lot of the cotton seed in cattle feeds and things like that. So we need to get a word on for one of our sponsors, Sandling Golf Cars. They're located in Oxford, right there on Lewis Street, 613 Lewis Street, Oxford, North Carolina. It's the location of Sandling Golf Cars. They have utility trailers, parts, service, and more. We'll take a trip to Oxford to Sandling Golf Cars.
Sandling Golf Cars is located 613 Lewis Street in Oxford. They are open for business weekdays 8 until 5:30, Saturdays 9 until 1. Are you in need of a golf car? See Al, Hillary, and Will. They have club car and E-Z-GO models. If you're wanting a gasoline or an electric golf car, maybe you're just wanting one that's basic, or you would like one that's fully customized, they've got them in stock at Sandling Golf Cars, 613 Lewis Street in Oxford, where they're open for business weekdays 8 until 5:30, Saturdays 9 until 1. Call 919-693-4626, toll free 1-800-221-9267. Are you in need of a utility trailer? You'll find tow dollies, enclosed trailers up to 24 foot, equipment trailers that can handle 30,000 pounds, stock trailers and dump trailers. See them at Sandling Golf Cars. If you need a larger enclosed trailer, no problem. 919-693-4626, toll free 1-800-221-9267. Financing is available. Also, if you're in need of Trojan batteries or repair service on your golf car, see Bradley and Dennis at Sandling Golf Cars, 613 Lewis Street in Oxford. They also have Wilmington Grills at Sandling Golf Cars, 613 Lewis Street in Oxford. Call 919-693-4626 or toll free 1-800-221-9267. Stop in and see them this week at Sandling Golf Cars. They carry club car and E-Z-GO golf cars. That's Sandling Golf Cars in Oxford.
Here we are back on the Gardener's Corner program, and once again, time has just slipped away. You know, Gary, you and I could continue talking on. I still had questions about sorghum and soybeans, and, you know, wanted to talk more about corn, but I appreciate you enlightening us on some of the things going on with tobacco and things with cotton. And just appreciate it. And
well, I appreciate you having me on, and maybe some if you decide to invite me back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We can talk about some of the research projects that we're doing out here in Extension, in the two counties, and some of the ones I'm personally doing. You know, Carl did his own research projects on asparagus and pawpaws and rhubarb and a few other things. Him and I, before he left, we've got a sweet corn project over on the research station that we did with the GMO versus genetically modified versus 18 non-genetically modified from the best sweet corn company in the United States, which is Illinois Foundation Seeds. And we're going to invite, we hope, some master gardeners and people who like sweet corn and like to plant and show them the difference of these two types of non-GMO versus genetically modified versus non-genetically modified sweet corn, and look at the differences in what you're going to get. And you know, we invite people from farmers market to come and look at this, because it is significant, the difference that has been pointed out. And Carl set it up to where, and they're just one row plots, but there's a lot of significant difference of insect damage, disease damage, everything. It'll shock you. And we're looking in August, sometime in mid-August, to do maybe a little tour over there at the station.
Well, please let us know whether you're on this program or one of the other agents. We'll get the word out, and we'll also get something mentioned on the local news. But that's going to wrap it up for today. Special thanks goes out to Gary Cross with the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service, where he is the crop agent for Person and Granville counties. Thanks goes out to T.G. Brooks Company, Sandling Golf Cars, and Our Pride Foods, makers of Our Pride Premium Pimento Cheese Spread and Dip. Also, thanks goes out to David Bratcher Jr. for filming us. And on behalf of all the staff and agents of the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service, my name is Rob Hall, and we want to wish you and yours a happy and safe weekend. And we look forward to seeing you next week when we will have Jennifer Grable of the Cooperative Extension Service here on the Gardener's Corner program.